We'll introduce our good friend of the Poor People's Campaign, John Janasco. John is a co-leader of the coalition with Wood Street Commons, Just Cities and the Village that form the Housing and Dignity Coalition. They are a group of formerly unhoused and currently housed advocates for humane solutions addressing the current homeless and poverty epidemic in our community here in Oakland and Alameda County. John Janasco.
Uh, Thank you. Good afternoon. I just want to thank the Poor People's Campaign for always asking me to come out here and speak my truth about my community. Um, as always, I'm never really prepared for all of this in speaking, but sitting here listening to everyone else speak, I want to make sure that people are left with some understanding and knowledge of how they could, help build our communities back up. One thing I've been noticing at different speaking engagements that I go to and just around, the Bay Area and seeing on the news is that we talk a lot about the sad, the traumatic parts. We show a lot of, when we're talking about encampments, we show a lot of the trash and despair and stuff. And I think sometimes it's a lot overwhelming for our community and not knowing where can I fit in, how can I help out, how can I make a change within our community or make a difference for unhoused people. And that leads me into just saying, I wanted to talk about something a little bit more positive when it comes to unhoused community. I was unhoused for about 10 years, and about 6.5 years ago, I got out of jail from being in jail for about a year and a half, and I ran across a group of friends that were living at 1707 Wood Street, and I joined that community. Within that community, a couple years later, we started organizing, and we saw a need for our people, us, the unhoused community, to start doing more ourselves. And we realized we could do a lot more, actually, to help our community out there. And so we started organizing, and we started getting a lot of donations coming in to our encampment, more than we could possibly use for ourselves. So we started distributing those resources throughout the rest of the community, doing outreach and aid, mutual aid to other unhoused communities, and started a clothing closet, started throwing barbecues and feeding the people that were out there. And it just started growing and growing. And it leads me into really wanting to talk about what we're doing right now. So 4 years ago, we started our fourth annual bike ride from Oakland, California to Sacramento. And this year is going to be our fourth annual bike ride. We ride out there with other unhoused communities, with housed people. We support this ride by raising, collecting donations, monetary, food, tents, sleeping bags. We ride. It's a 2-day ride to Sacramento. We get to Sacramento and we hang out with other unhoused community members. We hang out with the Sacramento Homeless Union. And we just have a good time. We stay at a campsite out there with RVs and showers and stuff, and just really have a great time out there. Also, we throw a resource fair every year over at Wood Street, 1707 Wood Street, for the unhoused community out there and for any unhoused that can get over to that location. Sort of rambling, I feel like, but I want to just really emphasize, like, the positive that comes out of some of these encampments that people are tearing down right now. Our city government is tearing down, dismantling and stuff. And it's not just because of, the trash that's there or these reasons that, politicians put out there. They're tearing them down because community scares our politicians. Communities scare the people that are dictating how our society should be right now. When people come together, that scares, I call it the powers to be out there. And this is one of the reasons why they tear down our communities and stuff. It's not because those unhoused communities are bad and they're full of crime and other things. Our world is full of crime. Our world is full of drugs and alcohol in ways that we medicate ourselves behind closed doors and stuff. But it's just really important for people to understand, I feel like, that there is such positive that comes out of these communities that form organically out there, just like with Street Commons formed so organically out there and did so many positive things, and we're still doing so many positive things. People ask, what can they do to get involved? How can they help out in their community and stuff? I say cook a meal. Go out to one of the unhoused communities that you see in your neighborhood and reach out to them. They're not as scary as you think. Organize your neighbors to help with maybe a community cleanup at one of the encampments out in our neighborhoods, as I emphasize our, because they're all of our neighborhoods, It's not just housed, it's unhoused. We're all one, basically. Go out there and talk to people. People, they're. I know it's sometimes a scary environment, but we got to reach out. We got to do the things that the people that are supposed to be, doing, spending money on. We have to be the ones to go out and find out what the need is within these communities and stuff, and spend time with the people out there.
Valerie Batchelor has served as the executive director of ACE Institute since August 2023, and as a school board director for Oakland Unified since January 2023. Additionally, Valerie Batchelor holds the position of lead organizer at CFT, a union of educators and classified professionals. With a strong commitment to education and community organizing, Valerie Batchelor utilizes leadership skills to advocate for the needs of students and educators. I now welcome up front Valerie.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Valerie Batchelor. I'm the director of ACE Oakland. We're a nonprofit community organization focused on working with, yes, that's right. Many of you know us through our housing work, but we do a lot of organizing around all kinds of different issues. Today, Veronica Hernandez is going to tell you a little bit about her story and the intersectionality of immigration and tenants' rights here in Oakland. Orale. Hi, everyone. My name is Veronica Hernandez. I'm a 57-year-old, and I live near 55th and Bancroft in Oakland for the last 20 years. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and a small business owner, and an active member of the community. My story begins really far from here. In 2003, I walked 16 hours through the desert to reach my family and the American dream. Sorry. When I first arrived to the Bay Area, I didn't know anyone. But I worked wherever I could, cleaning houses, worked at a bakery, and even helping my husband out in construction. Neighbors helped us out to find an apartment where we live. It was an abandoned apartment full of bugs and rats when we first moved in, but we cleaned it up, we repaired it, and we made it livable. Neighbors brought us pots and pans, chairs and tables, and over time it became just more than just an apartment, it became our home. For 20 years, my husband and I paid rent, raised our 3 kids, and built a community. We live in a rent-controlled apartment, so we don't bother the landlord very much because the rents are so affordable. If something broke, my husband, who is a handyman, would fix it. We even helped the landlord when he was cited by the city for different violations. We did our part because this is our home. But in the spring, everything changed. Our landlord sold the property to Derek Chavez. We knew that this was going to happen because our landlord had told us time and time again that when his mother died, that he would sell the property. We prepared for a new landlord, but we didn't prepare for the harassment and the bullying we faced with the new owner. In early May, my husband got a phone call at work. Derek, the new owner, told him that our family, including our 16-year-old grandson, had 30 days to move out and offered us only $5,000 if we left. When we didn't agree, he started harassing us, calling, texting, and then started asking us, "Are you legal? My staff are asking." At that moment, we were in a panic. We were really scared, and we reached out to some friends to get help, and they got us in touch with ACE. By working with Valerie and Marcus, through ACE, we discovered that verbal eviction notices are not lawful, and that a landlord should never ask someone's immigration status. It's illegal. We adjusted our immigration status many years ago, and our grandson is a citizen. But I thought of all my neighbors, friends, and customers who would be pushed out of their homes if they received the same text message. So we decided to fight back. We got together with neighbors. One woman in particular is Anna, who's 98 years old and has lived in her home since the 1989 earthquake. When her son got the same calls and text messages, she cried uncontrollably. She asked us, where were they gonna send me and my things? Anna's a disabled woman who depends on her neighbors to check in with her and support her. This isn't just about an apartment, it's about people's lives. Within days of those first calls, strange men began to show up at our property in unmarked vehicles. We didn't know who they were. Were they immigration agents, intruders, or something else? We later found out that they were construction workers, but nobody told us in advance, which is, again, unlawful. It was frightening. Then after we sent a tenant letter saying that we are remaining in our homes and listed long-standing needed repairs, Derek Chavez responded by tacking eviction notices on our doors. With the support of ACE, we found out that those notices were not lawful in the city of Oakland. We then tried to pay our rent, but Derek gave us false and conflicting addresses. We drove to Fairfield and Vacaville to find him. Both of those addresses were found on the notices that he had given us, but he wasn't there, and no one knew who he was. We called, texted, and sent photos of our rent checks, and he hasn't responded for months. We want to pay our rent, and we've always paid our rent, but now he's refusing to accept it. Meanwhile, the building needs major repairs. We have mold, we have electrical issues, and major habitability problems. Instead of fixing them and meeting with us, he's trying to push us out. And he's also got a history of this. Other tenants of the Bay Area have accused him of the same tactics: harassment, intimidation, and threats about immigration. Yet he still is allowed to be a landlord in the city of Oakland. The city attorney has even sued him in the past, and through ACE, we've been able to secure a letter to be sent to Derek, letting him know his behavior violates the laws of Oakland. I know what it's like to risk everything to find safety. I know what it's like to build a home out of nothing. And I know what it's like to be threatened to lose it all. But because of ACE, I know my rights. Together with my neighbors, we are staying together to fight. We are not alone, and we are not leaving. Thank you. It's really emotional, right? Because again, this is an attack on someone's home. And unfortunately, at ACE Oakland, this is not the only case that we have like this. There are so many more families that are getting false eviction notices, that are getting threatened with ICE deportation and evictions. And it is unfortunate that our city leaders are not stepping up and not supporting the work that we're doing. They are talking about sweeps versus housing. They are talking about what we could do to appease the Trump administration versus what we can do to fight back. And again, this is a really call on all of us to say, we are Oakland, we know better, we know how to protect our neighbors and have a safe community. And what that means is stability for every single one of our neighbors. And that means tenant protections at the bare minimum. So, don't know how much more time I have, but I'm gonna wrap it up. If folks wanna get involved, again, this doesn't just happen because me and Veronica went to the landlord's home. We took a couple folks with us, like Greg, and we've been continuing to push back on every single landlord that is harassing our neighbors. But that is gonna take a mass number of people pushing back, taking action, and demanding change from our city officials. So if you want to join this movement, please check in with Greg. He's got a sign-in sheet. I'm gonna be passing around some of our recent wins. Again, we cannot get these wins if we don't come together to fight for them. And we also had the privilege last year, and 2 years in a row actually, of taking students with us to Sacramento to advocate for housing. We had 12 Skyline seniors come with us and share their stories around how scared they are to graduate because they do not know where they're going to live once they graduate and come back. We had, last year we had 12 eighth graders from Urban Promise Academy share their stories, and it was amazing but heartbreaking. I will just share one. A 14-year-old talked about how he was gonna have to get a summer job in order to help his family stay housed. This is a 14-year-old, y'all. They should be out playing in the streets, doing all the fun things, not having to work. So again, if we want an economy that works for us, if we want a city that works for us, please come talk to Brother Greg and he'll sign you up. Thank you so much.
I'd like to welcome Batul to the front. Batul is a Palestinian organizer with the Arab Resource Center Action, an organization working to build Arab community power in the Bay Area. Welcome, Batul.
Hi everyone, it's good to be here with you all today. My name is Batul. I'm a Palestinian organizer with the Arab Resource and Organizing Center Action, where we work to build community power within Arabs in the Bay Area. And I wanted to just touch on what some of the other panelists were talking about, which is the intersectionality between all of these different issues. I know that a lot of the time when it comes to the issue of Palestine, people think that because this isn't happening domestically, then that means it's an issue that they don't have to be fighting for and they don't have to care about it. But tying into the unhoused community and into immigrants, US police that terrorized our unhoused community members in the Bay Area and Oakland, essentially everywhere, ICE agents that are ripping apart immigrant families, and the Israeli Offensive Forces, who are a settler colonial military power that is genociding Palestine right now. All three of them, they train together. US police and ICE agents go to Palestine, where they are taught anti-terror tactics from the Israeli Offensive Forces that they inflict on brown, black, and poor communities here, and they use those same tactics on Palestinians in Palestine. So all of this is extremely intertwined, and none of these are standalone issues. And so today I'm here to talk about a campaign that AROC Action, the Palestinian Youth Movement, and the US Palestinian Community Network all launched together, called the Oakland People's Arms Embargo Campaign. The city of Oakland's complicity has been concealed from its union members, from its educators, from city officials, and from its residents, and from all of us here, and this is not okay. The Poor People's Campaign is a national call for moral revival, and this campaign is a call for the moral revival of the people of Oakland, of the people of the Bay Area, and of the people of good conscience, to call for an arms embargo and an end of military cargo shipments from our civilian airport 15 minutes away. Thank you. So over the past few months, the Palestinian Youth Movement has been conducting research, and they released a report that highlights the evidence of ongoing military cargo shipments to the Israeli military through the Oakland airport. And I don't want to get into every single detail of the report, but it is important to understand how the system works, to understand why this campaign is so important, and why it's important to be mobilized and to join it. So since January of 2025 until August, that is 8 months, there have been a minimum of 280 military cargo shipments that have departed Oakland Airport, with their final destination being the Nevatim Air Base in occupied Palestine. So when you're at your gate in Oakland Airport, waiting to go on vacation, to visit your family, to get back to your hometown, the plane right next to you, for all you know, could be carrying military cargo that is murdering and massacring Palestinian men and women and children. And again, this was hidden from us. We had to do this research on our own. The city of Oakland hid this from its people and from its residents. From these 200, could you go back? Thank you. From these 280 shipments, 96 of them, that's almost all of them, had a final destination for the Nevatim Air Base in occupied Palestine, which is where the Israeli Air Force stations the F-35 fighter jet. So the F-35 fighter jet is used, it is one of the military technologies that they use to carry out the genocide, and different parts of this fighter jet, like the bomb dropper, so the technology that is dropping these 2,000-pound bombs on Gaza, the surveillance technology, the precision technology, the F-35 cannot function without these parts. It would not be able to carry the genocide out without the support of Oakland Airport and these shipments. And this is not okay. Like, Israel is literally using these parts to ensure that their genocidal campaign that the US is a full supporter of, to be as vicious and deliberate as it possibly can. Like, this is all extremely intentional. And The Oakland airport is not just one of the, like a small actor in this, it is actually one of the most important actors in this military supply chain. The Department of Defense via the Defense Logistics Agency in Tracy, California, that's an hour away from here. An hour away from here is where these shipments are acquired, packaged, and transported to the Oakland airport, 15 minutes away, and then they're dispatched on FedEx flights out of Oakland Airport to, again, the Nevatim Air Base, where they're almost immediately used to be committing a genocide. Like, it is leaving Oakland and going to drop bombs and aid dropping bombs on people in Gaza. And so, because of this information that was found, we decided to launch this campaign where we are demanding an Oakland arms embargo on Israel, and we're demanding the stopping of any and all military weapons or cargo from the ports of Oakland to Israel. And so I know this campaign specifically targets Oakland Airport, but it's really important that everyone is aware Oakland is not the only complicit actor in this vicious supply chain. It's only the start. And in this chart, actually, this is a US-wide flow of Lockheed Martin's military goods to Israel. Lockheed Martin is a weapons manufacturing company, and their base is in Fort Worth, Texas. So this is just a sample, and as you can see, Oakland is number 2. Oakland is the number 2 airport. It is the second largest shipper of military cargo to Israel. And it is only second to Fort Worth, Texas, which is the location of Lockheed Martin's main F-35 production facilities. So our civilian airport is number 2 to the weapons manufacturer only. And this suggests that Oakland functions, again, as a critical part of this military cargo supply chain for Lockheed Martin's F-35 program. And so, because Oakland is such a key and recurring site of these military cargo transfers, it needs to be placed at the center of this conversation. Oakland has a central role in the supply chain of genocide, and this is misaligned with everything that this city stands for, truly. Oakland has a progressive history opposing war, opposing colonial violence, and the evidence from this report places an urgent responsibility on all of us here, on civil society, and on labor and local institutions to confront the complicity that is embedded in this infrastructure. Our civilian airports should not be so militarized where they are aiding the committing of a genocide. And so these shipments contradict the will of the people and the progressive values, again, of the city of Oakland. And so we call on Oakland's elected officials to uphold the city's legacy of social justice, and that starts here, that starts with all of us now, that starts with our communities. This is called the Oakland People's Arms Embargo Campaign because it is a campaign that is being pushed forward by the people. That means everyone needs to be popularizing this campaign in whatever capacities that they can. You need to be mobilizing everyone you know. You need to be mobilizing your own self because this does affect you. We are all taxpayers here. The US government sends billions of dollars to military aid and weapons finances to Israel. Billions of dollars every year when we can't get access to healthcare, to housing support, to basic necessities, but we have billions of dollars to be funding a settler colonial state that is colonizing Palestine and committing a genocide against its people. The latest report that came out a few weeks ago says that 680,000 people have been murdered in Gaza in the past 2 years. That is almost 1 million people in 2 years, and that number is the bare minimum. That number is an extreme undercount. It is not considering people who've died of famine, people who are still under the rubble and have not been discovered yet, people who have died because of the diseases that have come out and impacted them. 680,000 people is the bare minimum, and Oakland is actively supporting in the murder of these people. And so it's our responsibility as the people of Oakland to end this genocidal supply chain. So AB 715 is a bill. It's a bill that is essentially equating any critiques of the state of Israel or of Zionism as being the same thing as anti-Semitism. And so essentially, this censors educators from being able to teach on Palestine. And even though it is specific to the issue of Palestine, this essentially is going to affect all ethnic studies. It's an attack on ethnic studies programs statewide. We've been fighting this bill for a few months now when we've had countless meetings with city legislatures. We've showed up to so many different meetings at the Capitol, and We were under the impression that they were against this bill, but then when it was voted last week to be pushed forward or not, there was almost a unanimous vote for the bill to be pushed forward. Only one legislature abstained, and so now it's in the hands of the governor to veto the bill or not. And actually, if you go to the website arockaction.org, you're able to send an email to Governor Newsom saying that you oppose the bill. And it truly is like such a horrible bill that they are trying to put forward. They use the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, which again, essentially says that if you are criticizing Israel or Zionism or advocating for a free Palestine, advocating for an end to the colonization and the genocide, then you are anti-Semitic and that you are not allowed to teach on this issue. And as an educator, you can't bring these conversations and these topics to your classroom, which educators should be allowed to speak on whatever they would like. They should be able to teach their students and their communities and their classrooms on ethnic studies, on Palestine, on these issues that are greatly impacting our communities, both locally and abroad. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. If there's any Zoom questions, either put them in the chat or raise your Zoom hand or your human hand. Or if not, anybody here want?
Asking how protests help, because sometimes I'm scared to go, or sometimes I don't think they help, but I'd like to know.
Yeah, I think the speaker earlier, I think Sunny was mentioning this. So protests help in a couple of different ways. It makes people come together, and so that coming together sometimes even gives you the courage to do more and to be more active. It also shows strength and unity across cultures, across divisions, across communities, across organizations, so that it shows the strength of it. And it also shows that people in power, it checks their power, right? I think one of the quotes that he had mentioned was, you know, any sort of government, they can't collect taxes on their own. They can't milk a cow. They can't drive a bus. They can't teach. They need the people to do that. And if they see enough people coming out enough times, that really checks like, wait, am I doing something crazy or am I doing something right? That being said, there are folks in our community right now who are at very high risk if they go to a protest or an action. And so that may not be something that is like everyone's jam or everyone's possibility. That does not mean that there isn't a place for you in the movement, right? We talked about in the civil rights movement, folks baking goods to sell in order to support organizations that were doing the work, right? Mutual aid is really important. We talked about folks that make the art, make the music. We talk about folks that do childcare, right? Some folks cannot go to actions or cannot participate because they have kids and they need someone to take care of them. So if those are some of the things that you can lend to the movement, that is wonderful and great because that's some of the stuff that we also need too. So I think protest is really important, but it's really about finding your place in the movement and actually doing the work so that more and more people can be a part of it. And lastly, bringing other people along is super, super important. Like whenever we go to actions, it's not just me running up to something. It's like we have a group, we have a plan, we know what we're up to, and that is really important to also keeping yourself safe during an action and doing other work that's important to the movement. But thank you for the question too.
I was asking John Janasco if he could explain how they started the Dignity Coalition, what that came from, what groups formed to create that, and why.
The Housing and Dignity Coalition formed, it was, if I have this right, it was a coalition of churches that got together with the Elders Council is what they call it, Black Elders Council in the Bay Area. They were already having conversations about how can we combat homelessness and how do we help out. So they came together and they reached out to the Village with Anita B and Just Cities, and then they reached out to the Wood Street Commons, and we started meeting once a week to come up with a way that people aren't forgotten about what happens is people get into, coordinated entry into the system or into shelter programs, and they sort of get lost in translation, and they never really end up getting the permanent housing that they need, and they end up being back on the street. Shelters get closed down. Nonprofits lose their the ones that are managing some of these sites, they lose their paperwork, blah, blah, blah. So we wanted to make sure that there was a way that we're meeting people where they're at and starting to upgrade their situation at that moment, not waiting for them to finally get permanent supportive housing and providing those services. We're trying to meet people where they're at, so encampments, and we're pushing for best practices when it comes to encampment upgrades, so that the encampments that are there can stay where they're at until there's a place for them to go. Hopefully that place next would be into sanctioned safe site communities, and then also safe site RV lots, and then into cabin communities with more of a long-term situation for people. But it was just a group of organizations that came together to present this type of proposal and show there is a way for all of this to work together with the Measure W funding.
Can I speak a little bit of the Measure W funding? So most folks may not know, but in 2020, our county passed Measure W, which would collect a tax in order to fund services for folks who are unhoused and transitional support. That was caught up in the court system for many, many years, and now those funds are freed up. And the county has allotted 80% of those funds to go towards supportive housing, like transitional housing and other ways to support the unhoused community, and 20% to go towards other pieces of their budget. Unfortunately, landlords, greedy corporate landlords, are trying to get that 80% to line their pockets. They're saying that money needs to go towards reparations for landlords, because of the moratorium during the global pandemic of a contagious disease that made it so that most families had to stay at home. We are working with a coalition of different organizations to fight that, because we know our unhoused neighbors need these supportive services, need this path to be able to get in a situation in which they're stable and housed. And we know that landlords already made profits year after year, even during the pandemic, because there were programs that made it so that they did get their rent back. If they didn't apply for it, that's on them, right? So it's really important that we look at every level of government, whether it's school board, Peralta Community College Board, City Council, and the county board when it comes to solutions around these issues, because those are the entities that need to be working together side by side to make sure that those funds are being used in the best ways for our communities and not to line the pockets of corporations and millionaires.
I just wanted to ask the young lady, but I just want to ask you a question. When you do your day of action, are you going to do it at the airport? Because I think that'd be the best place for you guys to do it at. And get some organizations together, not just yours, just get a bunch of people together and go out there and protest at that airport.
I hope to see you there then. I'm going to hold you to that. That's a really good question. A week ago, we had our press conference. That was when we officially had launched the campaign to the press and to the public, and we had it at Oakland Airport. And then there was a rally around the airport, and people were going inside. They were talking to the airport workers. They were talking to community members who were just there for their flights. And we were getting the word out on the campaign because 100%, exactly like you said, if the airport itself is where these military cargo shipments are being transferred out of and being sent out of, then that means that, one, we need to be on the same page and have the support of the workers at these airports. You cannot have a successful organization or a campaign or a movement if you are not in alignment and in unity and community with the workers who are actually at the base of where your organization at the base of where your campaign is and what it's trying to put forward. And so when you are talking about the widespread community support, At this point, I think we have about 100 organizations locally and nationally that have endorsed the campaign, because 100%, this isn't something that the three of our organizations, AROC, PYM, and USPCN, can do alone. And it's not something we want to do alone. This is a people's campaign, and that means we want to popularize it as much as we can with business owners in Oakland, with students at community colleges, with community members who have been there for decades. It's a matter of all of us coming together and having people power to push this campaign forward and to enact an arms embargo in Oakland, starting at the airport as the root of this vicious supply chain of military cargo.
So I live in Oakland. The moratorium on rent really helped me out. Thank goodness. Thank you for everyone who pushes for that. I've been able to stay in my building, but our property management group, we're under a Lapham company. They're based on Telegraph in Oakland, and a lot of people rent from them. They don't do anything about the harassment from our on-site apartment manager. Is this something that ACE can help with, or like it's just been years of this guy harassing the women in the building?
The answer is yes. And I think we got your contact info, so that's wonderful. Yeah, so what we've been seeing too is that there's now this like kind of middle level management, if you will. I come from the labor movement, so a lot of the things that I think about are in the labor perspective. But those type of management companies are like in between you and the landlord, right? And sometimes that's helpful because the landlord could be crazy and that management company could actually be helpful. But most of the times what we've seen, it's just, that's the black hole where everything goes into and nothing comes out of. And so one of the things that we're currently working on is mapping out where these big management companies are managing and figuring out who are some tenants that want to fight those management companies and or that landlord. Because again, time and time again, folks are talking about horrible habitability issues in their apartments, right? You are not the only person that's also mentioned just general harassment from these property managers. We have a member right now, or we have some folks in a building right now, where the general manager just pops into their house whenever he wants. He actually walked into someone's house the other day, said, "I need to use the bathroom, and what do you have in the fridge?" and grabbed a beer. He popped into somebody else's house and they ended up suing him because they were in an intimate situation. And they ended up winning that lawsuit, but the property manager remains, right? And so again, it's on us to hold these folks accountable and push back. It's on us to organize, right? Like the eviction and rent moratorium didn't happen because all of our elected officials were like, "Oh, this might be a good idea," right? It happened because of the hard work of ACE and our siblings to push back and say this needs to happen. If folks must stay in their home, we have to have a system in which they can stay in their home, in which they're not going to get evicted, right? Right now, we're talking about what could happen if the National Guard comes to Oakland, right? What could happen if the ICE raids start ramping up in Oakland? And I'm talking to electeds about, we need that eviction moratorium. We need that rent relief already. Like, we need that to be a trigger. We need it to happen already because, as you guys heard, Veronica's story is not new. And it is not the only one, right? So if we allow these types of things to happen with no supports for our families, we might as well be handing Trump the keys to Oakland. We might as well be selling off our properties to everybody that wants to be here, right? This might be Trump Mar-a-Lago 3.0, right? But we're not gonna let that happen. But we need more folks to stand up and join us in making sure that that doesn't happen, right? That our siblings in these other movements, that we're tying this stuff together, because what happens to him happens to me, what happens to her, what's happening in Palestine is happening to us right now in our communities. And so that's why we need to fight back. Thank you.
I have a question and a thought. There's a lot of power if we could unite the tenants who are fighting tremendous housing insecurity and the unhoused. And I was hoping that you and the sister Veronica, could speak to the efforts to try and combine those things as we think about how to prepare for possible occupation. But this fusion movement that Dr. King and I talked about at the beginning, I wondered if you might give some comments or thoughts about how you see that progressing.
I think it's for Wood Street, it's communication and a lot of reaching out to the organizations that already know about us and support us. And I think it's just, in general, like organizations being able to see that commonality and what we're all fighting together, and then making sure that we're making space, time for us to go out and support each other in the individual, fights out there. And I see that, life has us in such a rush and so stretched thin, I noticed, like just trying to continue on doing the fights that we're fighting against. And it doesn't allow us to create the community that we need to be building to be able to combat this together, because there is a lot of power in the people and we all are fighting against the same thing. It's just that we haven't crossed paths, a lot of us, yet, and we need to cross paths. And I'll say it again, like the way that, really quick, that Wood Street does things is that we try to create a space that everyone can come out to. This is not for any particular individuals. When we invite people to come to our outreach, all we're doing at outreaches are we're serving the people that are, the most vulnerable and in need. We're having conversations with other orgs or individuals that come out there, and that's what has to happen. We need to have conversations with each other. We need to start being more consistent with each other, and that's how we build this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so one of the key things about us is we're a member-driven organization. So it's not really what Valerie thinks and wants to organize around. It's really what our lovely members want to organize and think about. And most recently, we have been organizing around Measure W to make sure that those funds are used for the intended purposes. Again, that may not hit tenants right away, but we know, like, Veronica, Greg, and I were just talking about, look at 1025 2nd Avenue, right? That building could be used for housing. But what is it being used for right now, right? Like nothing. And it's sitting in such a key location. I mean, like Laney is right here, right? There's schools right there, right? So how could we think about that space in a different way to activate it for the community? So thinking about that with our unhoused community, how can we work together to make sure that these things happen? But I think to your question around the National Guard, I mean, I'm gonna cry, y'all get me crying all day today, but I am just heartbroken at what's going on in DC. I've lived there for many, many years, and I know that community is extremely diverse. I know it's had extreme challenges around housing, just like we have, but it does not matter what you look like or who you are. They are picking you up and they are throwing away your stuff and not telling your family where you are going. And if we want that to happen, we can continue to stay in our silos. If we want to change that, we must work together, right? This is a moment we cannot mess around, right? We are already seeing how our lives are more challenging than our parents' lives, right? And for folks who have kids, it's like, what is that future gonna look like for that kid? And so it's like we have to fight for the now that we want, but we also have to fight for the future that we deserve, right? Dr. King and other folks were talking about, the vision of a movement in which folks are valued for the people they are versus what they produce, right? Capitalism wants us to produce, wants us to be valued in that way, and we must say absolutely not. We must say every life matters, specifically Black lives, specifically immigrant lives, specifically lives with folks with disabilities, specifically trans lives, right? Because those are the ones that are under attack at the moment, but we must also be building towards a future in which We are all valued and we are all able to do the things that we want to do regardless of our income, regardless of our race, our religion, history, regardless of our family, and regardless of our zip code as well. So that's the future that we need to be building. And yes, that means going to Wood Street together. We're gonna do that, brother. We're gonna do this, I promise. Because our members are gonna wanna do that. That means heading out to the airport and taking action with our Palestinian siblings. Because again, what's happening in Palestine is what could be happening here. Right? Like as she was saying, they are being trained there to bring that shit here. We do not want that here. We have to push it out, and we have to push it out everywhere we can. Exactly. Exactly. Yep. And I'm gonna head it off to the next question.
Yes. I'm born and raised in Oakland, specifically the 80s. What can I do to contribute to my community?
I would say come out. Come out when you hear that an organization needs support, something, especially if you believe in it, come out. And the more that you come out and be involved and just around with that community, the more you'll hear and understand, the more knowledge you'll get, and the more things that you can, contribute. I just say come out. When you hear about something, come out.
And
Bring
you can
friends
always
with you.
join us for the Laney Poor People Committee meetings. We would love to have you work on the teach-ins with us.
If I could just make one more plug, there is also a mass mobilization training coming up on October 5th at Oakland Tech. That way you can get plugged into other organizations that are doing work. That way you can get to know folks so that when you go to actions, you have some folks that you know. That way you can get into some good trouble. And good trouble is, making sure that you're holding your electeds accountable, that you're standing with community, that you are advocating for your values. And again, what's really, really key is do something, even if it's really small, right? Coming here today was the first act of you doing something. Now you can now see a couple different organizations, right? Look us up. We all got websites, right? There are events coming up. So go to something and bring someone with you. And it may be someone who's a little bit hesitant, maybe someone who's like, I'm a little shy. It's all good. Let's go together and let's see how it is. Because again, we have to build a different world. Folks are wanting to divide us. Folks are wanting to make sure that we're in silos, and we got to break that as much as possible.
Thank you so much. Give it up for this panel. This was great. And like she said, everybody needs to do something, just something.